So phase one of training camp has ended. OTAs are done, voluntary OTAs, mandatory OTAs. It's all done. And now we have a long wait for about a month until training camp starts. But before we get into that wait, let's talk about OTAs and what we learned from OTAs. But before I do that, I want to make sure I give a shout out to the patreon.com dog check tier members. I'm going to start with Fred Pratt III, David Valtier, Relentless Buck, Chunt, Rex Kaufman, The Real Quincy Carrier, Kevin Johnson, Marino V, Cleveland Cart, Matt H, Sign Sheets, Gemini, Fight Dirty 74, Yo-Yo, Matt Lloyd, Paul Wilcox, Hundo Magnifico, Rob Ferron, Kyle Stouffer, Lukey from Munich, Dave Roth, J Guy 101, Joe Bobby, Brad Calvo, Dylan W, James McGinley, Orenda Hall, Chad Gimme, David Maldonado, Dylan Hale, Josh Bendor, Mark M, TJ Showman, Stuart Moore, Cleveland BCI, Robert Jermaine Jr., Dave Mike May, John Cummings, Andrew Hirsch, Curtis Bear, Brock Kumar, John Albert, Masayua, Buds Roland, James Nemo, Mac House, Reeve Hertz, Philip Wilcoxon, Marie Vivert, Sean Barron, Goggles Pisano, Corporal Nick Lopez, Dom Gazzulo, Nick Nasty, Ian Whitaker, Colin 216, Anthony Latham, Christian, Dave Strong, Matt Stone, Charles Work, Billy Moose Gentry, Mark Burnett II, Andre Griffin, Otis Wolf, Dog Pound Kai, Greg Ehlers, Austin Bolin, Kirkabar, Easley Badge, Joe Hart, Gabriel Wilson, Max Nilikinko, Lydia Mahawk, Jesus Serrano, Chris Phones, Picktown Browns backers, Mark Kahn, Max Owl Dojo, and Water Bear Marketing. Again, guys, thank you so much for your support. It means a ton. Now let's talk about OTAs and what we learned from them. Now, one thing I do always say when it comes to OTAs is to take it with a grain of salt. Information in OTAs can definitely change by the time that we get to training camp, especially by the time that we get to the regular season. So while these are good indicators and generally good news that we're hearing and things are pointing in the right direction, in no means is this confirmation of something bigger or greater than, what it is at OTAs. With that context in mind, I think there are 5 interesting takeaways that I've gotten from OTAs and what's been reported and come out of OTAs that are very interesting. The first thing is Greg Newsome versus Greedy Williams, right? We kind of speculated that this was going to be a position battle because they play the same position. Both are boundary corners. Both are guys you wouldn't want to use exclusively as boundary corners. Greedy was somebody who people thought would be a first-round draft pick. In his draft, fell to the second round, has had injury problems ever since. Greg Newsome, on the other hand, is a first-round draft pick. And I do think that Greedy has an uphill battle here. One, just because Greedy is not a Andrew Berry draft pick. Now, that doesn't mean indefinitely that Andrew Berry wants nothing to do with Greedy Williams. It's just that the investment that they have put in Greg Newsome for this regime is a lot more costly than it is for the investment that they have in Greedy Williams. Not saying that if Greedy's good, they won't keep him around. I think they will. But nonetheless, they're more invested in Greg Newsome taking that spot. And it's going to be an uphill battle because right now they're competing for the same spot. And unlike a lot of other rookie battles that we're going to talk about as the summer goes on, this is one that's already at, Greg's at 2, Greedy's at 1. And the big thing for Greedy is that Greg is going to be healthy at the start of camp. He has no lingering issues that would hold him out. And Greedy might not, right? Greedy's still dealing with that nerve damage. He's making strides towards getting back on the field, but we don't know if he's going to be ready to go once pads come on and practices start to get physical come August. So that's going to be something that Greedy's going to have to deal with. That's going to be something that's going to be a big problem for Greedy, and that's why I do think this is an uphill battle for Greedy Williams to win that job a little bit more than what I would have assumed once they drafted Greg Newsome. So there's that. The second takeaway, Baker looked great. Baker has looked great all summer. People have commented that they feel like he's in great shape. I feel like Baker, for the most part, has never really been an out-of-shape guy. I know a lot of people made a lot of what they perceived the shape to be in 2019, but Baker looks like he's in good shape. Here's the interesting thing, right? We only heard about the one interception that he threw in OTAs, and that's a really good sign for Baker Mayfield. Like, granted, it's a good sign for Greg Newsome, who actually got that interception. How many times during this period have we had to hear about how, the defense is going to be ahead of the offense at this point, and that the interceptions that you're seeing in OTAs aren't a red flag? Baker's only really thrown one interception throughout the whole camp period, so that's good news. And honestly, when it comes to Baker Mayfield, less news at this point is good news. And from all accounts, he looks like he's picking up right where he left off. So as of right now, it seems like people who have fears of Baker Mayfield falling off can feel a lot better that that's not going to happen, or it doesn't look like it's going to happen. The next thing I want to talk about from OTAs is JOK. Joe Woods had some interesting things to say about him, all really positive things. I think everybody is saying that he's making great progress in the defense and that he is taking the steps they want to see him take. But one of the interesting things that was said about him was Joe Woods talking about what kind of role that he's going to put JOK in. And he mentioned how it's intriguing to use JOK everywhere because he's a guy who could seemingly go everywhere, but that's not how he wants to use him in year one, and that he's not really going to use JOK to his full capabilities until after his first year, more than likely, just because he wants him to master the will linebacker position, master some of these smaller responsibilities before they put a lot of the more versatile things in his pocket. It's a similar game plan when it comes to development that they had for Grant Delpit. Now, obviously, we didn't get to see how that turned out because Grant tore his Achilles before the season could start, and we didn't see where I was going. But before Grant tore his Achilles, he was really going in and out when it comes to reps with Carl Joseph. They really were starting him off slow. And other people who've covered the Browns have mentioned this, but, you know, it would probably be a similar plan for JOK. So I don't know if we're going to see week one of the preseason JOK after starting with the linebackers. I think they're going to give Jacob Phillips those opportunities, or Sione Takitaki or some other will linebacker those opportunities. Probably Malcolm Smith as well early on in camp, just because they want to be real cautious and not put too much on JOK's plate, which is interesting. This could lead to what some may feel like is a underwhelming rookie year, given all the ways that people know that you can use JOK that they probably won't use him. But this will be interesting to see how he progresses, if he takes steps, and how far past the plan he's going to be, or if he's going to get past the plan that Joe Woods has for him in this season. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch. All things from all the players, coaches, good things out of JOK, but the plan is to start him off slow. Next thing I want to talk about is Clowney and McKinley. And while I don't think these two are really underrated at all, I think their impact potentially on this roster is underrated because nobody really talks about the importance of these two staying healthy. Now, the good news in camp is that they look good, they looked healthy, they looked explosive, they seem to be ready to have full camps. But also a thing you want to watch is these two with injuries. Tack lost most of last year with weird injuries, in and out with the hamstring. Clowney has lost the last 2 years of his career essentially to injury. So that's going to be really important to watch at the defensive end position, because the depth at defensive end was something that affected Miles, I feel, greatly at the end of the year, where he looked kind of gassed. I felt like they didn't have enough support around him. They kind of relied on him too much. And if those two aren't going to be healthy, then that's pretty much all your extra support for Myles Garrett that you spent in the offseason trying to build. So having those two guys with injury questions, it's going to be something you're going to want to watch all camp. But right now, no red flags, which is good news. And the last thing out of OTAs I want to talk about is Odell Beckham Jr. He is not only just ahead of schedule, he looks pretty good according to everybody who has been at that camp. I mean, you can't speak to anybody who has been around that camp that is not saying great things about Odell Beckham, which is obviously really good news if you're a Cleveland Browns fan. He looks ready. He looks bigger, stronger, faster. And this kind of been a case the last two off seasons with Odell. Now, we didn't really get to see what he fully was capable of last year because he did get injured around week 6, but there were sparks where he looked amazing. I mean, you talk about the Dallas game, some of the catches that he made against Indy. I mean, a lot of what he did in 2020 got kind of erased because of that injury. I think a lot of people forgot that he was a key contributor in some very important wins early on in the season. Looks like he's ready to go just 7 months after that injury. And, you know, I feel like if there is a season to really get a fair shake of what Odell and Baker can do together, this is the opportunity for it. So I'm hoping for all good things there. And I do think it's really important to focus on having a healthy wide receiver room for Baker Mayfield and that being there for him, because that's one of the things he didn't have last year. When he really turned the corner, really started playing well, he wasn't playing with the full deck when it came to wide receivers. Jarvis, who got better later in the year because he was recovering from that hip injury. Obviously, no Odell. You're throwing to guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones, Rashard Higgins, who we love here, but they're not necessarily the big name or the proven wide receivers the Browns do have on the roster right now that are healthy. So that's going to be something interesting to watch. Odell Baker connection. It looked actually pretty good last year in training camp, and they've been working out during the offseason. So hopefully this year they can take that step, have that full belt of game, not have to have learning a new offense be a barrier to their chemistry, and really get this thing going. Because that, among things like the defense getting it together, but I think offensively, if you want this Browns team to really be one of the best 3 offenses, if not the best offense in the NFL, that's the one thing that has to get right that they haven't gotten right? The running game is going to be incredible. The offensive line's really good. You have strong tight ends, and you have a decent passing game, a pretty good passing game with Baker Mayfield and everybody else that you got there. But you're missing that one element, that one really explosive element in this offense. That's what Odell can bring. That's what they hope to get out of him. And the healthier he looks, the better he looks, the more he's going to be able to get reps in with Baker. And it looks like for training camp, they're going to be able to have a full one, Odell and Baker. So I think that's going to be a really good thing for this season. But that's really it when it comes to OTAs. Again, not groundbreaking information by any means, but little small nuggets of information that are really going to be useful when it comes to following some of these storylines, when it comes to training camp and everything else. So I feel like OTAs, good news, no huge injuries, knock on wood. So that's good. Now this team's going to be trying to get to training camp, get through that healthy. An exciting season ahead. Let me know what you thought of the news that came out during OTAs. Are you ready for the season? Let me know in the comment section down below. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.